This is a presentation about the global flows of information. So, as long as different media like dance, theater, sports, writing, films, books, etc., have existed, they've been used to convey culture, to convey the experience of immigrants, of people who've been displaced, and just to share culture with one another. So, we are going to talk about how those processes occurred at the time that the reading was written, and also how that has changed up until the modern day.
Hello, I will be presenting dance, theater, and sports. According to the reading, dance is the personification of transcultural flows. In 2021, dance is still a form in which people from different parts of the world are connected. For example, the show Dancing with the Stars. Artists mainly from the US participate in a dance competition. However, they present dance from cultures outside their own. So it can be said that still today, the embodiment of these transcultural flows can be presented through dance as we take part in a culture that is not our own and incorporate it into our behavior. Now, I'll be presenting theater, which is similar to dance. It also embodies, and showcases the physical and behavioral aspects of transcultural flows. Theater can bring to life certain issues in history and share it to their audiences who will later apply what was shared with them from a new perspective, that is not their culture. This can be seen in Broadway, that they are presenting a bio musical called Diana, which retells the life story of the Duchess of Wales. They tell it mainly to an American audience, and this way they taking new cultural values and history from England and apply them to their own lives and behavior. Athletes today continue to act as vessels for transcultural flows. People who follow local sports connect with the rest of the world through athletes. With the digital world, athletes create their own platforms on social media and can connect and interact with their fans in an easier way. Thus, they learn about issues from different parts of the world, from athletes to the fans and fans to athletes. For example, Olympian Simone Biles, she voiced her traumatic experience with Dr. Larry Nassar through media. She shared her encounter with the whole world. As an athlete, people learn about these sexual assaults that were happening under the care of the doctor, and people can see each shoes, from the United States, and they can see them in Asia. So, sports is really a transcultural, like a vessel for transcultural flows.
Without media and technology, globalization wouldn't be a topic to discuss. Radio. Radio has had one of the biggest advantages when it comes to globalization, as it can be understood by illiterate people, can gather lots of audience from several countries, besides being an easy source to be found. Internet has been a fundamental aspect in regards to the development and spread of globalization, as it has facilitated the flow of information, supporting and sharing of ideas and culture, and connecting people together all over the world. We are now simply living in an era of globalization of information due to the internet. Blogging has become an important method for people to express their opinions in a safer way rather than face to face, but it wasn't like that in all countries. Blogging in Iran, for example, as stated in the book, they didn't have the freedom of speech. Some people were beaten up for expressing their point of views. After being one of the countries that has the most number of bloggers around the world, and their language is one of the most top 10 used blogging languages, people now are being arrested and being charged for being political descendants. Media is playing an enhancing role in globalization and has managed to gather the best of what is local and what is global. It has expanded our knowledge base and supported several ways of bringing several cultures together. Definitely, it has its pros and cons, but the world has benefited from it. Mainly, it has succeeded in making the world as a global village.
Moving on to film, television, and satellite programming, the sources allow the flow of information in the form of both still and moving picture. That was not possible in the ancient time. We can first start to take a look at the film industry. Bollywood still leading in terms of quantity with the highest number of film produced. However, in terms of revenue, Chinese film industry account for about half of the US industry revenue. Despite its competing climate, Hollywood still managed to dominate the industry and maintain its popularity on a global scale. The reading point out the role of film as carrier of culture, helping viewers to understand foreign value, attitudes, and belief. A good example would be Mulan, which was released in 2020. Chinese culture, from clothing to martial arts, was being shared largely among their inner circle countries. However, Disney did face a certain level of cultural clash or conflict. The portrayal of Chinese dragon named Mushu was perceived to be a trivialization of culture in the eye of the Chinese. One of the professors even said to the Hollywood Report that Mushu was very popular in the US, but the Chinese hate it. The multilingualism of a film still affects the degree of distribution. However, DVD format is not as popular as they used to, as suggested by the reading. Many streaming services such as Netflix and Disney Plus are becoming very popular. These seem to also affect the TV and satellite programming. According to the recent data, it is possible that the immigrants in the US have switched from TV broadcasting to a streaming site instead.
So the reading describes the written word as being distinct from the other mediums that we've talked about because it's really good at conveying the feelings and emotions that are associated with being displaced or immigrating. So books about the immigration experience have been popular for decades, even today. One example is Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, which is a book about 4 Chinese immigrant families in San Francisco. This book sold over 3 million copies and was adapted into a movie. A little bit newer, there's Enrique's Journey, which is from 2006, about a boy from Honduras who goes to the US in search of his mother. This was chosen by UW-Madison, a university, as their book club pick for all 50,000 students and faculty. So many people were exposed to the immigrant experience through this book. There's American Born Chinese, which is a very famous graphic novel about a boy who finds himself being the only Chinese American at his school and deals with bullying because of that. And even this year, The Loneliest Americans is a book published this year about how Asian Americans in the United States struggle to find their identity in a country that, as the quote states, sort of has a racial binary. Poetry may be shorter, but it also still is very powerful. Poets.org has an entire section dedicated to poems about migration. Now, we thought that the popularity of poetry might be going down, but in fact, it is becoming more popular. And a great example is Rupi Kaur, who is one of the most popular poets of our generation. She immigrated from India to the United States at the age of 3, has written a lot about this experience. She has 4.4 million Instagram followers now. So one might say that poetry is becoming more commercialized now, in that it's not that common for people to write poetry about their own experiences, but people are buying more poetry books to capture or to experience the feelings and emotions of other people. So even though it has only been 6 years since that reading was published, there have been so many changes in how media are used to convey culture. These changes just go to show that cross-cultural communication is in a constant state of change.